Hi everybody, and welcome to the tutorial for the woven paper card design. So it's hard to see because I chose to do this vanilla based woven paper on weaving, on top of a vanilla cardstock. So it's pretty subtle, but I still think it's a really cool technique, and I can imagine this technique being done with a variety of colors and maybe even textures. Imagine doing this weaving technique using papers that have been embossed, or maybe different sizes. Maybe you have some small strips mixed in with larger strips, or some gold strips, or glimmer strips, or ribbon mixed in with the weaving. It could be very cool to play with. I think this technique just gives lots of opportunities for just some new things and trying different things. So to do this project, you will need a piece of crumb cake cardstock measuring 5.5 by 8.5, and you'll score it at 4.25. And then you can fold that and have your card base ready. And then you will set that aside because we're going to work on our weaving pieces. So the rest of the supplies that you will need, I will give you the lowdown as we go. So we have some strips of paper, and I have divided mine into one pile that is 6 strips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 strips. Those will be my vertical strips. And then this pile has 8 strips, and these will be my horizontal strips. And the reason I've separated them out is some of my patterns have designs on them that are important to make sure they're facing the right direction, right? Need to pay attention to these things. Although I have to say that in this mishmash of designs, you can't really, you might notice if the trees are sideways, I suppose. That's probably the only thing. The rest you'd have to really look closely to see if anything is sideways or upside down. So these strips measure 3 3/8. They're 3/8 of an inch wide and 6 inches long. Other things you need, I might as well just carry on with the list. I've got a die cut label. This is from the Stitched So Sweetly dies. I have a piece of very vanilla cardstock. This is 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And then I have a piece of real red cardstock. This measures 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. And then we have some pieces of ribbon. We've got the Wonder of the Season ribbon. This ribbon comes in a pack of 2, which has this, which is the shaded spruce wide ribbon. And it also comes with some cording, which we're not using for this project, but the Wonder of the Season ribbon has this gold cord as well. But we're not using that for this project. Instead, we're going to use about 13 inches of linen thread. Okay, so to do some weaving with our paper, I'm going to get a scrap piece of grid paper. This will just help me to line up my pieces and make sure that they are perpendicular to one another. So I'll start with my horizontal pieces. If I can pick them up, there we go. And I'm going to lay them out on my grid paper so that they're lined up with the lines on the paper, and that way I know that I am, everything's going to line up how I want it to. So before I do that though, I'm going to decide which pieces are going to be green, which pieces I'm going to leave red. Some you might want to do all of the horizontal pieces one color and all of the vertical the opposite. It's totally up to you how you want that to look. I'm going to go like that, I think. A little bit, not really with a pattern at all. And then to kind of give those things an anchor, I'm going to use a bit of my Stampin' Seal down the side of my paper, because these strips are longer than I need. So having that extra length allows me to kind of anchor these pieces down. So I will lay my pieces down, make sure they're lined up with my grid paper. I don't need very much of a space in between. I'm only going to do like, I don't know, a 1/16 of an inch between each piece. So not very, so there's just a tiny gap in between. You can do a larger gap, you can do a smaller gap. Just keep in mind that you want your weaving to fit on your piece of vanilla cardstock. Mine are already not following the lines. So much for following the grid pattern. There we go, that's better. So I'm tacking them down on the left. That will give me control when I do my weaving and keep things together. So that's my 8 pieces. Yeah. And then I can take my vertical pieces and make sure that I've got my trees, that if I have anything that needs to go in the right direction, I can turn it. This one has a lot of the holly branches, so it's not too much of an issue. And then I can start weaving. So I'm sure you've done weaving before, but what we do is we go under and over, and under, over, under, over, under, and oops, over. So then you have your weaving started, and you don't need to go too far over because we're going to trim this off afterwards. And I don't necessarily, I could choose to tack this down, but I think I'll let it be until actually, you know what? It might actually be helpful if I do. So I'm just going to use a tiny bit of Tombow liquid glue. So I'll get a little bead of liquid glue any second now. A little bead. Okay, it doesn't want to do it. Come on now. It's not on the end. Let's try that again. There we go. A little bead of liquid Tombow. And I'm going to just tack down these kind of as I go. You don't have to do that. You can put all of your pieces in first. And then tack them down after you've got them all in position. Oh, I have an upside down thing. That's not working for me. Let's fix that. I can't have an upside down thing. How did I miss that one? I'm just gonna pull that off and flip it. Phew, glad I caught that. Not that it would have been, well, you know what? It's on the bottom of my design, so it probably would have been noticeable. Okay, let's try this again. A little bead of Tombow and tack that down. So I'm just gluing it to the top and the bottom pieces. That way, when I do my next piece, that one won't move. And I can just kind of forget about it. So now I'm doing the opposite. So the first one I did over and under, this one I'm doing under and over, or vice versa, as the case may be. So just rotating between the two. And again, I can get that one into position, making sure it is straight. Get my little bead of liquid Tombow. And tack that down. Just on a couple spots to make sure that it holds as I go, and then I don't have to fuss with it later. So again, you can put all your pieces in first and then tack them down, or do what I'm doing now and tack them down as you go. So this part takes a bit of time. For the sake of this video, you can fast forward to, or maybe I'll do that for you and I edit this. I don't know. We'll see. And then you don't have to watch me doing all these strips. There's only 3 more to go. I'm gonna zippity do these right in so that we can jump to the next phase. One more to go. Oh, that one's upside down. Ah, what's happening? I can't quite catch these. There we go. This one and there. Phew. Okay, so then I can tack those down with my little bead. Looking good. I think we are well on our way. Okay, so now we have our woven papers ready to go. So then we can cut this. We had attached it to our paper, so we can detach it. My scissors are gummy. Let's switch out those scissors. I don't have to be too particular because I know everything's tacked down, so it's not going to misbehave. At least it shouldn't misbehave. There might be some extra tacking that are required on these ends, so I'll do that because those ends were attached, so I didn't have any areas to lift. Particularly some of these I don't think are attached at all, which is okay, but they might shift, so I'm just going to stick some of these ends down a bit before I carry on. Make sure everything's still lined up. There we go. And I can even flip it over if I want and carry on, but I think we will take that as it is. And then I want to just trim my edges kind of randomly, give them some variety. Or you could have them all straight, it's totally up to you. If you wanted them straight and all the same, you could just slip this right into your paper cutter and trim it nice and straight. I like it kind of toggled. Just keep in mind that you want to make sure it's going to fit on your paper that you're going to glue it down to. So then you can take your piece of Whisper White, or sorry, not Whisper White, Very Vanilla. And again, that's 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And we can adhere this right to the middle of our paper. So I'm again going to use my Liquid Combo glue. And I'm going to focus on the ends. That way I don't have any ends that are lifting off of my paper later. Throw in a couple strips in the middle and we're looking fine. Okay, now making sure that those things that we tried so hard to make sure that they were upright, we're going to keep them upright. So I've got some trees, I've got a fox there, I had a snowman. I want to make sure those guys are facing up. And then that can go on our card. And again, making sure that all your papers are perpendicular and straight with your Very Vanilla paper. I'm just going to press down all my ends, make sure they're making contact. Beautiful. Okay, then we can glue that to our Real Red 3 7/8 by 5 1/8 piece of cardstock. Oh, and by the way, this pattern paper is the Toile Tidings Designer Series paper in the main catalog. Or no, sorry. Which catalog is it in? It's in, must be in the holiday catalog. Now I'm not sure, and I have to look. Which one is it in? It's a comeback from last year. So I'm not sure if it's in the holiday catalog or no, must be in the main catalog because I'm not seeing it. So it is in the main catalog, which is awesome because then you can use it for, well, it's not going to go away right away, which is nice. I'm just double checking in the main. Oh, it's not. What in the world? I must have missed it. It must be in the, anyways, it's there. It's somewhere. It's in one of those places. Just get some. It's great. I love it. It's so pretty and simple. And then we have that ribbon. This is the, again, the Wonders of the Season ribbon pack. We're going to attach that ribbon to our paper, to our layers on the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to flip it over and use a little bit of my Stampin' Seal Plus. And fold my ribbon over the back. I want to make sure that it's a little bit, like, I don't want it too tight because I'm going to tie this twine around, the linen thread around. So I need it to be loose enough that it can bunch where that linen thread is going to tie. so that's a bit loose. And then I can go ahead and tie that linen thread right away. So the linen thread is just going to slide underneath that ribbon. Tie it in a single knot. We're pretty close to the one side. And then tie it in a bow. And fiddle with your bow until you're happy with it. Bows are never perfect until you give them some love and attention. And you know what? Honestly, perfect is a poor choice of words because our aim is not for perfection. Our aim is for how we like it, to be happy with it. And sometimes it's not about being perfect. I guess, unless you want to argue perfect for you. But we have to try, or I have to try, to not get caught up on perfect. Okay, so then I can grab my die that is pre-cut using my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine and my Stitch So Sweetly dies. And I'm going to use Real Red ink. And then I have the stamp that I'm going to use is from the Tag Buffet stamp set. The 'Tis the Season is what I'm going to use for this card. With Love for You would fit really nicely as well. I'm going to go with 'Tis the Season. Now my ink is, or my stamp, oh my goodness, my ink pad is quite juicy. So I'm just going to use the blunt end of my spoon and kind of move some of that ink over out of the way so that I'm not getting quite so much ink. And then I can stamp my sentiment on my label. Lovely. And then this can go on my, over top of my ribbon with dimensionals. And I am using up some of my end bits of my dimensionals. I'm going to place them top and bottom on my label because sticking dimensionals down and having them contact the ribbon isn't usually as helpful. I know that this side of my label will be off the ribbon, so I'm also going to tack that down. And also that ribbon has a bit of puff, so tacking it down there will help it not to puff over top of that ribbon. So that's going to go pretty much center or wherever you wish. Maybe you don't want it center. That's okay too. There. And then the last thing we need to do is attach this to the card base. So we're just going to use more dimensionals. Attach that to the card base. And then you can add a piece of vanilla into the inside of your card to write on, maybe even stamp on it, decorate it, make it pretty on the inside too. And then we have a lovely card done. So there we go. That's our 'Tis the Season card.